I grew up in San Francisco where wealth wasn't just a comfort, it was a defining characteristic. We weren't just well off, we were the kind of rich that altered how people treated you. My parents, Vijay and Anuka, ran a successful chain of luxury, eco-friendly resorts. They catered to the kind of clientele who wanted to save the planet while living large. Networking was a competitive sport in our house. Every dinner, every charity gala, even casual backyard barbecues somehow morphed into strategic business meetings. Beyond the resorts, their biggest pride and joy was their relationship with another powerful family who owned a high-end event planning company. They were a perfect business match, each family feeding off the other's strengths. They planned the events, we hosted them. My parents acted like their bond was ordained by the universe. So, naturally, when I started seeing their daughter, Maya, my parents were beyond ecstatic. Ecstatic doesn't even begin to describe it, they practically did celebratory dances. I was 24, just beginning to find my footing in the family business, and Maya was 23, already a seasoned manager in her parents' company. We met at one of those ridiculously over-the-top networking parties our families were famous for. You know, the kind where everyone wore designer clothes and smiled too much. Initially, Maya and I clicked because we had so much in common. We both grew up under the weight of expectation, always aware of the family name and legacy. We could joke about the absurdity of our lives, like how our parents scheduled family dinners 2 months in advance, or how we were both taught the proper way to give a toast before we hit puberty. It felt like we understood each other, a rare feeling for me. Once we officially started dating, our parents behaved as if it were the best thing to ever happen. Finally, the next generation is taking charge, my dad would say, as if our relationship was some business deal. Every family event became a staged photo op showcasing Arjun and Maya, the future. At first, I didn't mind it. I was young and the attention felt good in a superficial way. But it wasn't long before the cracks began to appear. Not publicly, of course, but behind closed doors. Maya thrived in the spotlight. She was charming, polished, and commanded a room like a seasoned performer. She relished being known as one half of the golden couple. For her, our relationship wasn't just about us, it was about image, brand, and public perception. If I even suggested a quiet night in, she'd lay on the guilt, saying things like, "We're supposed to be building something bigger here. People are watching us." My parents didn't make things easier. They adored her. My mom called her the perfect daughter-in-law, which was always awkward considering we weren't even engaged. My dad, usually hard to impress, would bend over backwards to praise her. It wasn't just her charm, it was what she represented to them. Maya was a bridge between our families, solidifying a partnership that could last generations. That was the underlying issue. Everyone saw our relationship as something more than just a relationship, it was a business strategy. My parents would drop subtle hints about our future. "You two are unstoppable," my mom said one night after a dinner party, as if congratulating us on a successful merger. "You'll take both families to new heights." I wanted to shout, "What if I don't want this? What if Maya isn't the one for me?" But I kept my mouth shut. I knew how much it meant to them. Things only worsened as time went on. Maya and I started fighting more often. She had a knack for making me feel guilty for even contemplating stepping back. If I didn't want to attend some event with her, she'd say things like, "Do you even care about what we're building?" It wasn't about us anymore. It was all about this picture she had in her head, this idea of what we were supposed to be. I remember once suggesting that maybe we should dial back the public appearances, focus on just us for a while. Her reaction? "We can't just disappear, Arjun. People expect to see us together. Do you even realize how bad it would look if we started pulling back now?" That stung. And the worst part? My parents acted like Maya was perfect, untouchable. Any time, even the smallest time, I'd voice a concern, they'd just dismiss it. "You two are so good together," my mom would say, completely missing the tension, the strain. My dad even told me once, "You're lucky to have someone like Maya. Don't take it for granted." He meant well, I guess. At first, I questioned myself. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe I wasn't trying hard enough, wasn't appreciating her enough. I really did wonder. But deep down, I knew that wasn't it. The simple truth was, we just weren't a match. We might have looked amazing on paper, but we just weren't good for each other. I started feeling like I was playing a role, a character in someone else's movie. Every time we went to some party, some dinner, I'd plaster on my best smile, act like everything was perfect, but inside, I felt completely trapped, suffocated. I'd look around at all these people congratulating us on being perfect and wonder how many of them actually knew anything about the reality of our relationship. There was this one night that really drove it home. My parents had thrown this huge dinner party to celebrate some milestone at the resorts, and Maya and I were, of course, front and center, the star attractions. My dad made a toast, talking about how proud he was of us, how our relationship was the future of the family. Everyone clapped, smiled, made all the right noises while I just stood there, holding my drink, feeling like a damn prop in a stage play. That night, I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, just wondering how the hell I'd gotten here. I wasn't angry at Maya, not really, or even at my parents. I was angry at myself for letting things get this far, for not putting my foot down sooner. I wanted to break free, but I honestly didn't know how. It felt like leaving Maya wasn't just ending a relationship, it was letting down my entire family, her family, all these people who had been rooting for us from the sidelines. Looking back, I realized I should have spoken up much sooner, but at the time it felt impossible, like trying to move a mountain with my bare hands. I kept telling myself that maybe things would get better, that maybe I just needed to try harder, to give it more time. But deep down I knew the truth. Maya and I weren't building a life together. We were building a facade, a pretty lie, and I didn't know how much longer I could keep it up before I cracked. I think the turning point for me was when I realized that being with Maya wasn't just draining my energy, it was exhausting me in a way that felt impossible to recover from. The relationship had stopped being about two people figuring life out together and had turned into a constant performance, a never-ending show. And the scary part? I didn't even know when that shift had happened, when we'd crossed that line. It wasn't always bad, to be fair. Maya and I had moments where things felt almost normal, even genuinely fun. I remember we'd sneak away from family events to grab burgers at this hole-in-the-wall diner downtown. It was one of the few times we could just talk, just be ourselves, without any eyes on us, and for a while, those little moments made me think that maybe we still had something worth holding on to, that there was still a spark. But those moments were rare, fleeting. Most of the time, I felt like I was walking on a tightrope, trying to balance what Maya wanted with what my parents expected. Maya wasn't a bad person or anything, but she definitely had this knack for turning every situation into something that ultimately benefited her. If I brought up feeling overwhelmed, she'd spin it around, saying, "We're in this together, Arjun. Remember, if you're struggling, we'll figure it out as long as we stay strong for each other." At first, that sounded supportive, even caring, but over time, I realized it was just her way of keeping me in line, of controlling the narrative. Staying strong for each other really meant, don't rock the boat because it'll make me look bad. I started noticing how calculated everything was with her. Every social media post, every carefully planned dinner party, every time we attended some obligatory event together, it was all about appearances, all about the image. She'd spend hours getting ready, not because she wanted to impress me, but because she wanted to impress the crowd, and if I wasn't matching her energy, if I wasn't playing my part, it became a problem, a source of tension. I remember one time, we were at some charity gala and I wasn't feeling great, just tired from a brutal week at work. I thought I could just get through the night quietly, stay under the radar, but Maya wasn't having it. "Arjun, people are noticing you're not engaging," she whispered sharply while we stood near the buffet table, her smile tight and forced. That was Maya in a nutshell. I was floored. Seriously, I wasn't trying to be disrespectful. I just wasn't about to turn into some hyperactive cheerleader. It ended up with her monopolizing the conversation all night, telling everyone how thrilled I supposedly was about our future plans, plans that, news to me, even existed. It was like watching a movie of my life, with Maya providing the voiceover. And then my parents chimed in, which only made it worse. Mom would drop these little bombs, like, "Maya mentioned you've seemed stressed lately. You should really talk to her. She's so understanding." Or Dad would casually mention how crucial it is to keep your partner happy, as if I wasn't already bending over backwards to keep everyone happy. I felt like Maya and my folks were this perfectly aligned team, and I was just being dragged along for the ride. My sister, Priya, wasn't much better. She was firmly on Team Maya, always gushing about how great we were together, how she envied our rock-solid relationship. Whenever I even hinted at being unhappy, she'd just laugh it off, like I was overreacting. The thing is, I don't think Maya was consciously trying to manipulate me. She genuinely believed in the idea of us, this power couple building an empire. In her mind, we were these two ambitious dynamos creating something amazing together. But that wasn't the reality for me. I wasn't building anything. I was just following her lead, nodding along to whatever story she was spinning. I remember one excruciating night out with her friends, another one of those awful double dates where everyone tries to one-up each other with stories about their careers or their exotic vacations. Maya was in her element, laughing and launching into some elaborate story about how we were planning this amazing trip to Europe. I hadn't even heard a whisper of this supposed trip. When her friend turned to me and asked about it, I had to scramble to come up with some vague, non-committal answer. Later, when I brought it up to Maya, she just brushed it aside. "I was just thinking out loud," she said, all smiles. But wouldn't it be amazing if we did that? Everyone loved the idea. They think we're so adventurous. It wasn't about actually taking a trip, it was about the image of us as this jet-setting, cosmopolitan couple. As the months rolled by, I started feeling more and more detached. Maya either didn't notice or, more likely, didn't care as long as the performance continued. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Every single day was about putting on a show for our families, her friends, the business community. I started avoiding her when I could, not in some dramatic way, but in subtle, almost imperceptible ways, working late, canceling plans at the last minute, pretending to be too exhausted for any real conversation. At first, I thought maybe I just needed some space to sort things out, but the more space I created, the more I realized how much lighter I felt without her constant presence. Even when we were together physically, it felt like we weren't really connecting. She'd ramble on about some new business venture or a fancy gala she wanted us to attend, and I'd just nod along, barely registering a word. When I tried to bring up things that actually mattered to me, like how I was seriously considering stepping away from the family business, she'd either dismiss it outright or deftly steer the conversation back to something that revolved around her. One night, I told her I was thinking about taking some time to travel on my own, just to clear my head. She looked at me like I'd just announced I was planning a one-way trip to Mars. "Why would you even do that?" she asked, genuinely bewildered. "We're building a future together. You can't just take off and leave everything behind." That's when it really hit me. Maya didn't see me as a person with my own individual dreams, ambitions, and struggles. To her, I was simply a carefully selected piece of the puzzle, someone who perfectly fit into the life she was meticulously crafting. And the scariest part of all was that I'd allowed her to do it. I'm not sure exactly when the resentment started to fester, but once it took root, there was no ignoring it. Every time she started talking about our future, I felt a primal urge to scream. It wasn't our future, it was hers, and I was just a supporting character, there to make her look good. At that point, if I'd previously thought things between Maya and me were strained, nothing could have prepared me for the storm that was brewing. I wasn't happy in the relationship, but I kept telling myself that it wasn't the right time to pull the plug. Between the pressure from my family, our intertwined business connections, and Maya's uncanny ability to make me feel guilty about absolutely everything, it always seemed easier to just push my own feelings to the back burner. The world tilted on its axis the Tuesday evening Maya dropped that bombshell. I just dragged myself through the door after a grueling day of back-to-back meetings, every nerve ending buzzing with exhaustion and irritation. My plan involved ordering something greasy and losing myself in the mindless glow of the TV when my phone buzzed. A text from Priya, my sister. "Call me now," it read. Priya and I weren't exactly close, our conversations usually reserved for obligatory family events. The urgency in her message sent a jolt of unease through me. I dialed, half expecting a request for a favor or some petty complaint. Instead, the second she picked up, I was met with a verbal assault. "How could you do this to Maya?" she spat, her voice laced with a fury I rarely heard from her. Blindsided, I stammered, "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb with me," she snapped back. Maya showed me the messages. "I can't believe you'd betray her like that." "Messages? Betrayal?" The words felt foreign, alien. Priya was practically screaming, accusing me of being a liar, a cheat. I tried to interject, to get a grip on the situation, but she wouldn't let me get a word in. I was disgusting, selfish, had humiliated Maya and the entire family, she roared. Finally, I managed to cut through the noise. "What messages?" "Priya, what the hell are you talking about?" That's when she laid it all out. Apparently, Maya had presented her with screenshots of text messages supposedly exchanged between me and some other woman. According to these digital ghosts, I was calling this woman babe, whispering about clandestine meetings, making plans for secret rendezvous. Maya, according to Priya, claimed she'd discovered these messages on my phone and had been silently suffering for weeks before finally confiding in my sister. My gut twisted into a cold, hard knot, not because of guilt, because there was none, but because I knew, with a sickening certainty, that no one was going to believe me. "Maya is lying," I stated, trying to project a confidence I didn't feel. "I never sent those messages. I don't even know who this woman is." Priya wasn't buying it. "So, you're saying Maya fabricated all of this?" she challenged, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Why would she do that, Arjun? She loves you. She's always been supportive, and this is how you repay her." The conversation ended with a brutal finality. Priya declared she couldn't even bear to look at me and hoped I could somehow figure out how to become a better human being. Then she hung up, leaving me stranded in a sea of confusion and disbelief. I sat there, phone still clutched in my hand, trying to make sense of the wreckage. My first thought was the sheer absurdity of the accusation. I'd never cheated on Maya. The thought hadn't even crossed my mind. The second thought, the one that sent a shiver down my spine, was that Maya had to have manufactured those messages. But why? The answer hit me with the force of a physical blow. Maya had sensed me pulling away. She'd known it for some time, that almost imperceptible shift in my attention, my energy. This was her way of seizing control, rewriting the narrative. By painting me as the villain, she automatically became the victim. It wasn't just about keeping me tethered to the relationship. It was about enlisting my entire family as her unwavering support system. Over the following days, the situation rapidly deteriorated, spiraling further and further out of control. Maya had already presented her evidence to my parents, and by the time I had a chance to offer my side of the story, they were completely closed off, their minds already made up. "We raised you better than this," my mother declared during a strained phone call, barely allowing me to speak. "Maya is devastated. She's done so much for you, and this is how you repay her? She wouldn't invent something like this." My father added his weight to the accusation. "We've seen the messages. You need to take responsibility for your actions." It was like arguing with a brick wall. No matter how vehemently I protested my innocence, no one believed me. I was trapped in a nightmare of Maya's making. Maya had expertly crafted a narrative where she was the injured party and I was the unfaithful villain. The aftermath hit me hard. A family meeting was called by my parents, but it was more like an ambush waiting to happen. Maya was there, positioned next to my mom, dabbing away at non-existent tears while my dad launched into me. "Do you understand the repercussions of your actions?" he demanded. "You've humiliated the family. Do you realize the extent of the damage you've done?" Each time I attempted to explain my side, Maya would produce another tear and utter something to the effect of, "I just can't understand why you did this to me." It was as if she'd been rehearsing her lines. My parents were completely taken in, comforting her while shooting disapproving glances my way as if I was the lowest of the low. What stung the most wasn't even Maya's perceived deception. It was my family's reaction. They didn't give me the slightest benefit of the doubt. No questions were asked, no attempt to understand my perspective. They embraced Maya's story wholeheartedly and decided I wasn't worth defending. Within a week, I was essentially banished. My dad informed me that they couldn't tolerate someone like me damaging the family's reputation and jeopardizing their relationship with Maya's family. "It's best if you keep your distance," he stated. "You need to reevaluate your priorities." I couldn't decide which was more painful, the fact that my parents believed Maya's lies or the fact that they were so willing to discard me. The situation deteriorated further when word reached extended family members. Suddenly, I was bombarded with judgmental messages from cousins, aunts, and even family friends. People I barely knew felt the need to voice their opinions, labeling me a cheater and a disgrace. An aunt posted a passive-aggressive message on Facebook vaguely alluding to the importance of loyalty and honesty within a family. While she didn't mention me by name, everyone knew who she was talking about. Only a couple of close friends stood by me, assuring me that the truth would eventually surface. However, at the time, it didn't feel like it ever would. The most infuriating aspect was knowing that Maya was portraying herself as the victim while I was left to deal with the consequences. She had not only ruined our relationship but had also completely destroyed my standing within my family. And the reality is, being disowned by your family isn't something you can prepare for. There isn't a manual that provides guidance on how to rebuild your life when everyone perceives you as worthless. For the initial few weeks, I was in a daze. It felt as though I'd been struck by a train and I was now merely wandering through the wreckage, trying to regain my bearings. Following the fallout with Maya and my family, I packed up my belongings and left San Francisco. I didn't have a concrete plan, just a vague notion that I needed to be anywhere else. I ended up in Austin, Texas, primarily because I had visited once for a conference and recalled enjoying the atmosphere. It wasn't a glamorous decision, but at least it was far enough away from the constant reminder of what I'd lost. The first few months were difficult. I resided in a cheap apartment on the outskirts of the city, one of those places where the walls are thin and you can hear your neighbors arguing over reality TV. It wasn't luxurious, but it was mine, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had some control over my life. The first priority was securing a job. Back in San Francisco, I had been working in the family business, managing operations for one of our resorts. It wasn't exactly a skill set that screamed start over in a new city, but I had to make it work. I scoured job boards, submitted numerous applications, and attended interviews that felt designed to break my spirit. Eventually, I landed a job in software sales. It wasn't glamorous or exciting, but it paid the bills. On my first day, I walked into a beige office filled with cubicles and fluorescent lights and thought, well, this is my life now. Initially, I felt out of place. The work was monotonous and I didn't know anyone in the office. My coworkers were polite but distant, and I spent most of my lunch breaks alone, scrolling through my phone and trying to avoid thinking about how drastically my life had changed. But slowly things started to improve. One of my coworkers, Jake, noticed that I always brought the same sad turkey sandwich for lunch and invited me to join him and a few others at a taco truck down the street. It became a weekly tradition, and over time I found myself becoming more comfortable around them. The job itself wasn't my passion, but it gave me something I desperately needed: structure. I threw myself into it, determined to prove to myself that I could make it on my own. I worked long hours, learned everything I could about the industry, and started to build a reputation as someone who could close deals. Outside of work, I was wrestling with the question of who I was, stripped of my family's expectations. Back in San Francisco, every move I made felt dictated by some greater purpose, either for the family enterprise or upholding our image. But here in Austin, my last name meant nothing and my past was irrelevant. I was just Arjun, a guy trying to forge his own path. Weekends became my exploration time. I checked out the local music scene, sampled food truck cuisine, and discovered hiking trails. I wouldn't say I was thriving exactly, but I was surviving, and for a while, that felt sufficient. Around a year into this new chapter, something unexpected occurred. I was burning the midnight oil trying to finalize a big presentation when a coworker mentioned that a friend of hers needed help optimizing data systems for her small business. It wasn't exactly my forte, but I thought, why not give it a shot? That little side project blossomed into something much more significant. Turns out I had a real talent for consulting, helping businesses streamline their operations and boost their efficiency. The work was challenging, yet fulfilling, and it felt good to use my skills in a way that wasn't tied to my family's ambitions. Over the next 2 years, I built a consulting business on the side, which eventually became my full-time gig. I focused on small and mid-sized companies, and before I knew it, I was earning more than I ever had working for my family. In the midst of all this, I met Hannah. She was a graphic designer I hired for one of my clients, and from the moment we connected, there was something different about her. She wasn't flashy or overly polished like Maya. She was warm, creative, and possessed this dry wit that completely caught me off guard in the best possible way. We started as friends, grabbing coffee after meetings and talking about everything from work to our favorite childhood cartoons. It didn't take long for those coffee dates to evolve into something deeper. Being with Hannah felt easy in a way I hadn't thought possible. She didn't care about appearances or status. She cared about me, plain and simple. By my 3rd year in Austin, I was truly thriving. I had a successful business, a supportive partner, and a life that felt entirely my own. During this time, I learned the importance of letting go of bitterness. Don't get me wrong, I still harbored anger about what Maya did and how my family handled it, but clinging to that anger wasn't doing me any favors. The more I focused on building my new life, the less I cared about the people who had let me down. It's amazing how much can shift when you're forced to start from scratch. If you had told me 4 years ago that I'd be living in Austin, running my own business, and engaged to someone like Hannah, I would have scoffed. But there I was, proving to myself that I didn't need my family's approval or their money to be successful. Starting over wasn't easy, and there were countless nights when I felt like throwing in the towel, but the result was worth every struggle. Then one afternoon, my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. Usually, I'd ignore calls like that, but something compelled me to answer. Arjun, it was Priya, my sister. We hadn't spoken in years, not since she had accused me of being the worst human being alive over those fabricated cheating texts. Hearing her voice felt surreal, like opening a door to a room I had sealed off long ago. Hey, I replied, keeping my tone neutral. I wasn't about to welcome her with open arms after everything that had transpired. She wasted no time on pleasantries. I need to tell you something, she said, her voice trembling. About Maya. That was a name I hadn't heard in a while, and honestly, I had been perfectly fine with that. But something in Priya's tone made me pause. She sounded anxious, guilty. I couldn't quite decipher it. What about her? I asked. Priya hesitated before blurting out she lied about everything. I didn't respond immediately. I simply let the words hang in the air, waiting for her to elaborate. Apparently, one of Maya's close friends, a woman named Alina, had recently contacted Priya with some sort of confession. Alina had discovered that Maya had fabricated the entire cheating scandal. She hadn't just photoshopped the texts. She had also orchestrated fake conversations with a burner phone to support her story. Alina had known about it for years but had remained silent because she didn't want to get involved. I guess Priya's conscience finally got the better of her. When she finished her explanation, the line went dead silent. I was speechless, a strange mix of emotions churning inside me. Part of me wasn't surprised. Deep down, I'd always suspected the truth. But hearing it confirmed, especially by someone who had been so vehemently against me, well, it was a little vindicating, I won't lie. Priya's voice was shaky when she finally spoke again. Arjun, I'm so incredibly sorry. I was blind. I didn't want to believe it was true about Maya, but I should have trusted you. You deserved better from me. I hesitated, the words catching in my throat. I don't even know what to say, I finally managed. I know saying sorry doesn't fix anything, she pleaded, her desperation palpable, but I had to tell you the truth. You deserved to know the truth a long time ago. Deserved? I wasn't sure I deserved anything from her at that point. It was hard to feel grateful when the truth had been buried for years, doing damage all the while. The damage was done. Later that night, I filled Hannah in on the phone call. She listened intently, her expression a blend of empathy and frustration for me. Do you think they'll actually do anything about it now? She asked. I just shook my head. Probably not. My family isn't exactly known for admitting when they're wrong, especially when I was right. The weeks that followed were filled with an almost deafening silence from my parents. Priya must have told them what Maya had done, she hinted at it in a text later on, but they didn't reach out, not even once. No apology, no acknowledgement of the truth, nothing. It was as if they were completely paralyzed, unable to process the truth now that it was out in the open. Instead of owning up to their colossal mistakes, they chose to sweep it all under the rug and pretend it never happened. Initially, I was consumed by anger. How could they say absolutely nothing after everything I'd gone through? But as time went on, the anger morphed into something different, clarity. Their silence spoke volumes, confirming my worst suspicions. They valued appearances and maintaining their relationship with Maya's family far more than they valued me, their own son. The truth wasn't some magical cure-all. It didn't mend the years of damage or erase the deep sense of betrayal. If anything, it simply highlighted the gaping cracks within my family, but it also gave me a strange sense of closure. I decided to stop waiting for an apology that was never going to come. I turned my attention toward building my life here in Austin. Their betrayal was devastating, but it also forced me to grow in ways I never imagined. It pushed me to step outside the comfortable bubble I'd been living in and truly discover who I was. Would I have chosen this path if I'd had a choice? Probably not, but sometimes life doesn't give you choices. It just throws you headfirst into a new direction and forces you to adapt. I haven't spoken to Maya since everything blew up, and honestly, I have no desire to. She's just a closed chapter in my life, one I'm happy to leave behind. My family remained in the same place I left them, quiet, distant, and unwilling to confront their actions. No apologies, no attempts to reconcile, just a whole lot of silence. Then, out of the blue, I received an email from Priya. The subject line, Aaron's wedding invitation. Aaron is my younger brother. We were never particularly close, but we got along well enough growing up. He was always the quiet, agreeable one, which seemed to make him my parents' favorite son after I became persona non grata. Seeing that subject line, I was unsure what to expect. I opened the email, and the tone was surprisingly casual. The email from Priya was casual, almost dismissive. Hey, hope you're well. Long time no see. Aaron's getting married in a couple of months, and we'd love it if you could come. Attached was the wedding invitation. Let me know if you can make it. That was it. It felt like I was an old acquaintance, nothing more. The thing that really got to me was that Aaron hadn't contacted me directly. It was his wedding, for God's sake. If he genuinely wanted me there, a simple call or text wouldn't have been too much to ask. Instead, he sent Priya to do his dirty work, like inviting me was some kind of unpleasant task. Initially, I ignored the email. I wasn't even sure I wanted to respond. But the more I dwelled on it, the more resentment built up. After everything that had happened, the disowning, the lies, the complete disregard, they expected me to just show up and pretend like nothing had transpired. A week later, another email from Priya arrived. This one was different, less breezy, more pleading. She said it would mean a lot to the family if I attended, that Aaron truly wanted me there but was struggling to reach out, and that this could be an opportunity for us to move forward. That phrase, move forward, grated on me. It seemed to be the family's go-to line whenever they wanted to avoid confronting the past. It wasn't about genuine reconciliation, it was about appearances. Again, I didn't reply. Then my phone rang. It was my dad. Seeing his name pop up on the screen felt incredibly strange. I hadn't spoken to him since he told me I was a disgrace and to stay away. Against my better instincts, I answered. I had to know what he would say. Arjun, he began, his voice measured but not overtly hostile. Priya mentioned you haven't RSVP'd to Aaron's wedding. I remained silent, waiting to see where this was heading. We would really like you to be there, he continued. It's important for the family to present a united front, and Aaron wants his brother there on his big day. A bitter laugh escaped me. If Aaron wants me there so badly, why hasn't he picked up the phone himself? There was a brief pause on his end. You know how he is, my dad said, dismissing my question. He's never been one for heartfelt conversations. That's rich, I retorted, my voice sharper than intended, considering you had no problem expressing yourself when you cut me off from the rest of you. My dad sighed as if I were being deliberately difficult. That was a long time ago, Arjun. Mistakes were made, but it's time to move on. There it was again, move on. My chest tightened with anger. You didn't just believe Maya's lies, you completely ostracized me. And when the truth surfaced, you didn't even offer an apology. You can't simply call me now and expect everything to be water under the bridge because it suits your needs. He started to speak, but I cut him off. You all made it clear a long time ago where I stand in this family. Aaron's wedding doesn't change that. I hung up before he could get another word in. In the following weeks, the pressure intensified. Priya sent more emails, each one more laden with guilt than the last. Even distant relatives got involved. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me on social media accusing me of being selfish and urging me to let go of the past. One of my aunts even called, claiming that my refusal to attend was breaking my mother's heart. Then, things went quiet, unnervingly quiet. Initially, I hoped they had finally accepted my decision, but I knew better. This wasn't about me or my feelings, it was about maintaining the family's carefully cultivated image. They weren't giving up, they were regrouping. Sure enough, about a week later, my mom called. I hesitated before answering. The moment I answered, a torrent of emotion hit me. Arjun, she began, her voice thick with tears, I just don't understand this coldness. It's Aaron's wedding, his big day. Don't you think he deserves to have his whole family there? The sheer drama of it all was exhausting, as if I was personally sabotaging the entire event. I kept my voice steady, repeating the same sentiment I'd been trying to convey. This isn't about Aaron and his wedding. It's about the way I was treated and how nobody has ever acknowledged it, much less tried to make amends. She sniffled, a loud, exaggerated sound that felt calculated to evoke guilt. Anyone can make a mistake, Arjun, she insisted. Can't we just let bygones be bygones, wipe the slate clean? I have moved on, I stated firmly, but that doesn't erase the past or the way I was treated. And now, after all these years, you expect me to show up, play the happy family member for appearance's sake? That's not going to happen. I've created a life for myself, a good one, and I'm not going to pretend everything is fine just because it suits your current needs. The line went quiet. Then, in a softer, more vulnerable tone, she said, You have no idea how hard this has been for me, Arjun. I just want my family to be whole again. That comment stung more than I anticipated. It wasn't about me, it was about her own discomfort and need to maintain this perfect family image. If she truly cared about making things right, she would have reached out years ago when the truth about Maya surfaced, not now when they needed me to play the part of the prodigal son. I'm sorry this has been hard for you, I responded, my voice carefully controlled, but believe me, it's been hard for me too. And unlike you, I had to navigate it all completely alone. She didn't respond and I ended the call soon after. A few days later, my phone rang again. This time it was Priya. I almost didn't answer but decided it was best to deal with it head-on. So, you're really not coming to the wedding? She asked, bypassing any semblance of pleasantries. No, I'm not, I replied, keeping it short. She sighed, a dramatic, world-weary sound. Do you even realize how awkward it's going to be if you're not there? People will notice. They'll ask questions. And that's supposed to be my problem? I retorted, feeling my patience wear thin. Maybe if you all had treated me with an ounce of respect, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. I hung up and immediately blocked Priya's number. I just couldn't handle any more emotional manipulation or guilt trips. The wedding came and went without me, and I honestly felt a sense of relief. Hannah and I spent the day hiking on a nearby trail, enjoying the fresh air and stunning views. Afterwards, we went to our favorite barbecue place and had a great time. It was a peaceful day, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel the weight of my family's expectations pressing down on me. I half expected the aftermath of the wedding to bring a fresh wave of pressure and guilt, but it didn't. Maybe they finally realized I wasn't going to budge, or maybe they just ran out of energy. Whatever the reason, the silence was a relief. Walking away hasn't been easy. It's a constant process, not a one-time decision. But with every mile I put between myself and my family, the clarity of my decision grows stronger. Hannah has been my rock throughout this whole ordeal. She constantly reminds me that it's okay to establish boundaries, even with blood relatives. I am learning that family isn't just about shared DNA, it's about the people who support you, who stand by you through thick and thin, the people who actively choose to be there. For me, that's Hannah, my close friends, and the life I've consciously built here in Austin. So, no, I didn't attend Aaron's wedding. And honestly, I don't feel bad about it. I don't have any regrets. My family made their choices a long time ago, and I've finally made mine.